Alright, today we're going to be looking at the posterior aspect of the antebrachium, and we are starting with the aconius muscle, which runs from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus right there and just comes down and attaches to the posterior ulna. Really short muscle, the aconius. Next is the extensor carpi radialis longus. And this is going to run from the supracondylar ridge of the humerus, which is right here above the epicondyle. It attaches all around that, and it will run down to the second metacarpal, the posterior base, which would be right here. And this muscle runs right along there. The extensor carpi radialis brevis runs from the common extensor tendon on the lateral epicondyle, and it comes all the way to the posterior base of the third metacarpal, which is right here. So this will run from the common extensor tendon to the third metacarpal. Next we have the extensor carpi ulnaris, and the extensor carpi ulnaris also begins at the common extensor tendon attached to the lateral epicondyle, and this one is going to run from the common extensor tendon down the ulna to the posterior base of the fifth metacarpal. So the posterior base right here of the metacarpal runs right along here, attaches to the common extensor tendon. Next up we have the extensor digitorum, and the extensor digitorum also, surprise surprise, attaches to the common extensor tendon at the lateral epicondyle and goes to the posterior base of the distal phalanges of digits 2 through 5. So that would be over here at the end of the fingers. And it runs right here from there down along this side here, above the radius, and then branches out to the digits. Digits 2 through 5. And these are actually shared tendons, where a lot of them interconnect. Then we have the extensor digiti minimi, which minimi is, of course, the little itty bitty mini finger, the pinky finger on the end. And this also attaches to the common flexor tendon at the lateral epicondyle and goes to the posterior surface of the base of the distal phalange of the fifth digit. So right through here. And it comes kind of through the middle here. Alright, we're going to start with clean slate now. Clean antebrachium, whichever. Anyway, we need to draw the deep muscles, and they're below the muscles that we just drew, so we had to do a little erasing, and now we will do the deep muscles starting with the supinator. And the supinator begins again at the lateral epicondyle and attaches to the proximal ulna right here and the lateral third of the radius. So it comes around this side here on the radius, about a third of that, and just comes right around here. And this is the supinator. Alright, next up we have the abductor pollis longus, and it attaches to the ulna right here, and the medial third of the radius, and then comes along down to the base of the first metacarpal. Next muscle we have is the extensor pollicis longus, and it attaches to the middle third of the posterior ulna. So middle third, posterior ulna is over here, and then it goes from there over to the interosseous membrane. Attaches to the interosseous membrane, and then the posterior surface of the distal phalange of the thumb, or pollicis. And runs right through there. Where there's a longus, there's a brevis. Our next muscle will be the extensor pollicis brevis, and it's a quite short muscle that goes from the distal third of the posterior radius. So distal third of the posterior radius would be right around here, and from there it goes to the base of the proximal phalange of the thumb. So right here is the proximal phalange. So here, distal third of the radius, and it also attaches here to the interosseous membrane between the ulna and the radius. Alright, the next muscle is the extensor indicis, and it extends the indicis, or index finger. It attaches over here to the ulna, to the distal third of the posterior ulna. Distal third is right around there, and it crosses and attaches at the interosseous membrane, again between the ulna and the radius, and then comes to the distal phalange of the second digit. The last muscle that we'll do is the brachioradialis. And the brachioradialis attaches up here on the lateral supracondyle ridge, right above the epicondyle. So the ridge runs from the epicondyle up here. That's where the brachioradialis is going to originate. And from there, it comes over and runs down all the way to the styloid process of the radius. Brachioradialis is a pretty big muscle compared to the others in the forearm. So there we have brachioradialis. And that is the posterior compartment of the antebrachium.